Hey, friends. This is Martine Williams, and I am obsessed with all things mompreneur life and helping you to remix your priorities, your habits, your mindsets, and yes, even your relationships so that you can build a successful business without losing yourself in the process. I'm also obsessed with the color turquoise and lyrics of the 80s and 90s, but that's beside the point. Girlfriend, you don't have to hustle 24/7, 365 and continue to sacrifice your health, your relationships, and your sanity to be a successful mompreneur. As a small town girl living in a lonely world to a six-figure mompreneur, I am here to teach you how. There is a better way, and this podcast is your one-stop shop for all of the how-tos, the encouragement, the life hacks, the success tips, and of course, a little side of tough love. This is the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast. So let's do this. Well, hey friends, I am excited for you to meet today's Turquoise Talk guest. It's on a topic that if you know anything about me, you know I don't love to cook, but my guest today is the perfect example of someone who took a passion of hers and turned it into a business, who took her passion for helping others. She was a teacher. So she took her passion, but she also took her talents and her natural gifts and built a business, a very successful business around that. And I don't know where you are in your professional life, but I know from the women that I've coached over the years that that's always the thing that hangs them up is, what would I even do if I was to leave my corporate job or if I was to leave a job that I'm miserable in? What is it that I would do? And I love Laney's story because she just started simple and she started with a heart of service and wasn't afraid to do it messy and wasn't afraid to take imperfect action before she had the perfect plan. So let me tell you a little bit about Laney. Laney Schwartz. She is the founder, creator, and recipe developer behind the food blog, Life is But a Dish. I love that. Laney is on a mission to help busy home cooks across the world gain confidence in the kitchen, to create simple and delicious meals and cook without being tied to a recipe. We talked about that in the episode. It's really funny. After 8+ years of blogging, Laney has over 600 reliable recipes on her website. I know you're going to want to go to her website and grab those recipes, and they're all using simple, everyday ingredients. Laney also created a program called Cook with Confidence to help the overwhelmed and anxious home cook learn how to build foundational cooking skills for life. She has successfully moved over 200 students through the program, changing people's relationship with the kitchen. So not only are you going to learn about business and taking your passion to profit, but also we're going to talk about cooking a little bit, which is not my favorite topic, but I always love to grab little tips from someone who it just comes natural to them. So anyway, welcome Laney Schwartz to the show. Welcome back, friends, to the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast. I am super excited about today's Turquoise Talk guest. It's one of my favorite things to do is to interview other mompreneurs and just kind of give you the opportunity to hear their story. Someone maybe you would never have met before outside of just listening to the podcast. So I'm so excited to have Laney Schwartz here on the podcast today. So thank you so much, Laney, for coming on the show.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
This is awesome. So I don't know much about you either, other than just what I've read on your bio. So for those that are listening, can you tell us a little bit about you, your family, and how or why you became a mompreneur?
Yeah. So my name is Laney. I live in Los Angeles. I have two girls. Well, I was going to say 8 and 10, but 8 and almost 11. And I've lived in LA for about 16 years. I'm originally from the East Coast. Prior to having my blog, Life is But a Dish, which has easy recipes for the everyday home cook, I was an elementary school teacher. So teaching is really my first passion and what I went to school for. I taught first and second grade for many years. And then once I had kids, I decided to stay home with them and was figuring out what I wanted to do next. And I always loved cooking, and I was always sharing recipes and posting them on Facebook before Instagram was a thing,
right?
For no reason other than just for myself. But when I had my first child, I discovered food blogs, and I realized that that's a that's a job that people can do. And, people can just share recipes and they get paid to do that. Like I didn't really understand how it worked, how blogging worked. And that's when I decided after I had my second daughter that I either had to make the decision to either go back to teaching or to try something new. And this gave me the opportunity to stay home with my girls while doing something, on the side, fun for myself. And 8 years later, here we are.
Wow. 8 years. Yeah. That's amazing.
8 years.
And it's really funny because I'm all about following simple recipes. I don't like, I'm not the mom who loves to cook. But I have 2 boys and a husband and they love to eat. So,
Yes.
finding someone like you who has simple recipes, and we're going to put a link to that so y'all can get access to all of her recipes in the show notes. But I love that you took a passion and turned it to something to help you from a business standpoint and to help your family financially. So there's always a mess before the success when we're kind of making that transition, whether you're leaving corporate or whether you're leaving a teaching job or nursing job or whatever, or just deciding you want to start a business. And there are some women who are listening to this podcast that might be their goal, for next year is to start a new business. So can you kind of share maybe a lesson or something you wish you would have known before you started?
Well, I love how you said there's a mess before the success, but I also feel like it's still a mess. Like even when you have the success, like that mess does not go away. So I don't know any entrepreneurs who are just like, yeah, everything is easy and great. It's messy. And I think, you see those graphs of like the line graphs of like wiggling around and it's good. And then it dips and then it's crazy. Right. And then it's a constant mess. So don't want anyone to think that it's just like smooth sailing from here.
Right.
But yes, there has been some great success. And in terms of, gosh, if I could, lesson that I learned, I think just kind of keeping my head down and trusting my own gut. I started this because of a passion that I had and simply just wanting to help people really like you who don't necessarily either love cooking or feel confident in cooking, and just showing people that it actually doesn't have to be complicated. And, I started this because I loved it. And if I just stick to what I believe in and just trust my gut that everything will work out, even in those messy, hard times. Just keep going, because there are so many times where you just want to give up, where it feels too hard, where it feels like there's nothing's working. Even 8 years in, I'm kind of, this year was a point of like, what am I doing? Like, what is happening? But just trusting your gut and just continuing to go and being consistent is a really big one too.
Yeah. I mean, things are ever changing with marketing and how she buys or how she responds, and it's ever changing. And so, entrepreneurship is definitely not for everyone. I mean, it takes a strong mental game for sure. And it takes having a community and just people that are willing like you to come on to a show like this and just say, it's messy, and you don't have to be perfect. But, it is going to require you to work through some things and put some work behind it. So I love what you said, like you just wanted to help people, and I think that's where the passion comes from. That's when the days you don't feel like getting up and going to your desk to write a new recipe or write that email. I mean, you really want to help people. And so it's finding that thing, whatever it is for you, that you can be passionate about and kind of move forward with.
Exactly.
So I always like to ask, there's actually 2 questions that I like to ask every guest. And the first one is, have you ever experienced burnout as a mompreneur? And if you have, what specifically do you feel like you were able to do to work your way out of it? How did it show up for you? Was it anxiousness? Was it depression? Was it overwhelm? Was it all the above? Can you kind of share with the guests?
Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely experienced burnout. And I think a lot of us kind of went through this, especially over the last few years, starting in 2020 through really now, it was hard. So I think depending on where you live, it really depends on, if you have children or not. Everyone went through it. For me, we live in LA, kids were home. My kids were basically virtual school for almost 18 months, kind of, back and forth. My husband worked from home. So we were all home. And while it was a beautiful thing in many ways, it was hard. It was really, really hard. And I don't think it really hit me until this year. Like, I think I was kind of really in survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, because again, when you're in that mode, you don't really know what's going on. But
Right.
I had my kids home dealing with, everything that was going on in the world. And then I decided this is a good time to create a new course. And I was filming all of these videos and literally created a course from scratch during that time. And that is a full-time job in and of itself. And I just, it was an amazing opportunity. I created this course called Cook with Confidence. It happened to be perfect timing because everybody was home learning how to cook.
Yeah.
So it was great for what it was. But I think once the dust settled, it just hit me really hard. And that's when I started to experience some real anxiety that I've actually recently been sharing about, because it's taken me almost all of this year to actually process what I've been feeling.
Right.
I didn't really know what it was. I had really no motivation to work. I was feeling anxiety different than I ever had before. I was really feeling it in my body.
Mm-hmm.
It was debilitating at times, and it was scary. And so I've really had to take a step back from my business to work on myself, because I just had no idea what was going on.
Right. Yeah.
With my brain, with my body, with everything. And so this year has been a burnout year, I would say. And I'm coming out of it, and I feel like I'm finally kind of back to myself. But it was kind of a long, like 9 to 10 solid months of just like, oh my God, like,
right.
It's scary. And if you don't, you have to be, I feel lucky to have people in this space that I can go to and talk to, friends, outside professional help, all of that. But if and when you do experience that type of burnout, whether it's actual burnout or not, whatever it is, I just think it's so important to open up, share about it, because sitting in that alone is not good and can be really scary.
Yeah. Well, you feel like you're on an island all alone, when you're going through it, and we do this thing where we just beat ourselves up about, well, I should be stronger, or I should be able to just get through this. And I don't think we give ourselves enough credit for what we are doing well in the circumstances that we just went through in the last 3 years. And then also the grace to just put it down, just put the business down for a little bit, or take that rest that you need, or, have those conversations that you need to have, get the professional help if that's what you need. So thank you for being willing to kind of share and be vulnerable, because I know there's someone who's listening right now who is feeling some of those same things, and she's feeling alone. She's feeling like, I don't even know what to do. So I'm glad that you are on your way out. It's not fun when we're in it, right? But now you'll be able to help other people. You'll be able to share, like you said, you're doing. Now you're able to open up. And I love that you said that you're on the other side, and now you're willing to share. I think sometimes we share too soon. Would you agree? Like, I've seen where we just share when we're in the midst of it, and it's not super helpful sometimes when we're just kind of putting our emotions out there. So we want to kind of be on the other side so we can grab that other person and bring them along with us. So that's why I always love to ask the question on the show, because I know someone's listening that's struggling with it. The other question is self-sabotage or imposter syndrome. And how have you, I don't think there's a single entrepreneur who has not experienced both of those things at some point in their journey. And we'll probably all experience it again at some point in our journey, because as we grow, you created a course, and that was something new for you. How have you kind of worked through that self-sabotage or that imposter syndrome that kind of comes up?
Yeah. It's super important to have people like teammates and coworkers in this space. I mean, some of my best friends are across the country that I've just met through Instagram. And we talk via Voxer every single day. And it's like I'm in an office with these people. So having people who can constantly build you up and remind you of all the amazing things that you do. Number one, I think finding your people, even if it's one person who can be that constant reminder, it's super helpful. But yes, we all experience it. And I feel like that hasn't been the self-sabotage, yes, but the imposter syndrome, comparing myself to others, I'm pretty good about not doing that. Like, I feel like I know what my magic power is. I know where my zone of genius is. I know that I'm an amazing teacher. Like, and I don't say that to be braggy. Like I know that is what I'm really good at. And so I constantly, if I'm ever feeling like, oh, I wish that I could be like so-and-so, or I want that, I definitely have had many of those moments. But then I just go back to, okay, what makes me special, and how have I helped people? And, going into those testimonials or screenshots of things that people have said, how I've changed their lives, like it's a big deal. And these aren't, Instagram is, people make fun of it, and it's, social media, and there's a lot of things that are negative about it, but it has allowed me on the flip side to truly change lives.
Yeah.
And helped people and really connect with my community. And so just going back again to your roots and to why you started in the first place. And I just think it's really important to continue to stay in your lane, focus on your why you started, what you're doing, and just remember that even changing one person's life can make a difference. So just stay in your bubble
right.
as much as you can.
And I think sometimes, would you agree that we're too close to our strengths sometimes, and we don't see them? So like you said, to have that community or that one person that you can go to and say, okay, what do you see? What do you see as my superpower? What do you see as my magic? Because I think sometimes we're so close to it, or we think it's just, well, everybody has that gift.
Yes.
And that's not necessarily true. Everybody's been given unique gifts and skill sets to bring to this world. And sometimes you're just too close to it. So asking. Absolutely. And social media is also, a really great place if people have worked with you to say, okay, what was your experience like, to do some market research to kind of help further encourage yourself in your business and your life.
Sure.
So definitely a positive of social media is being able to do that.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about, turning a side hobby into a 6-figure blog, like by providing real value, since we're talking about audiences and social media. Like, how have you been able to do that? If there's someone listening and they're like, okay, maybe it's not cooking or providing recipes, but they have this like side hobby that they want to now monetize or make it a profitable business. Like what are some things that you did to provide real value to your audience?
I kind of did it by accident. Like now looking back, I see what I did, but I had no idea what I was doing. Like I still feel like we're just all figuring it out.
That's right.
I think number one, the most important thing, if you are trying to turn whatever your side hustle is into a career or a business, you have to be consistent. So I think that goes across the board. So for me, when it came, I made recipes. And when I first started, it was really just the blog. There was Instagram, but it was just a photo. There was no video. Like video was not a thing when I started. And so for me, I had 2 kids under the age of, 2, basically 2.5. And consistent can mean different things for everyone. So for me, what I committed to for 1 year was to post 2 new recipes a week on the blog. That was all I really had time for, which actually was kind of a lot at that time. But I wasn't doing everything else. I wasn't selling things. I didn't have social media. Like it was like create 2 recipes, put it on the blog. That was it. And I did that every single week for a year. And then my commitments changed and I would add things or take things away. So even if, when I say be consistent, it doesn't mean that you have to do whatever it is every single day. But if that means once a month or once a week, if you're trying to create a newsletter, if being consistent for you is sending that out once or twice a month, then that's consistent. But that also builds trust with your audience. So it's super important to build that connection and trust with your audience. Again, even if it's less frequent than you would like, they know what to expect. They know they can trust you. And that just takes time. So being consistent, being patient, and that's really, I think, the best thing that you can do to start.
Yeah. Yeah. Consistency. And you have to define what it looks like for you. I love that you said that. You have to define, because everybody's in different seasons of their life. I remember like my kids are soon to be 18 and 15 in January. And I'm in huge denial that my oldest is getting ready to graduate high school. But I remember when they were little, and trying to find, okay, what does consistency look like for me? And what is fair for me to expect of myself to be able to, do in my business? And now, they're teenagers. They don't really want to be around me as much as I would probably, as I want to be around them. Right. It is. It goes by so fast, Laney. So just enjoy it.
Gosh.
But, now I have, big chunks of time in my day where I can show up in a different way as consistency. But I definitely think if you're trying to build a business, whether it be your emails that you're sending out, or if it's, your social media, how you're showing up on social media, it's like, let them know what to expect and then stay good on your word. There's always, sicknesses and kids and life happens to people. And usually if you're just honest with your people, they're totally cool with it. You just can't go like radio silent on them and like, what happened? Where'd she go? I need my recipe for this week. Where'd she go?
Exactly. And like you said, like things come up, and also like, your schedule, but nobody else is paying attention like you do. So like if you miss something, yes, you can bring it up, but I guarantee nobody even notices. Like people just don't notice like you do. But yes, the consistency is important.
So what do you think has been like your biggest, maybe one or two tips that have helped you to grow your business to be as successful as it is today? Like, was it email marketing, that you used and being consistent in your emails? Is it being on social and creating the videos? Like if someone says, okay, I'm ready to start my business, like what's the one thing you would tell them to focus on right now? Because it does change. Like when you started years ago, like if you said video really wasn't a thing. So what would you say to someone who's like, what are some success tips that you've had?
So first of all, I think it's different for everybody. I actually saw this video that, I don't know if you know who Gary Vee is.
Yeah.
So Gary, he posted something just the other day, and he basically, I forget exactly what it was, but basically there's like one of three things. You have to decide like what you're best at. So if video is your thing and you love, if you're great on camera and you can connect with people, commit to video. If you're a writer, like, and you want to do the emails and the blog posts or whatever, do it through writing. And there was one more. Oh, I think it was like talking, like, start a podcast. If you're a great talker and, then that's your thing, but pick one of those and stick to that. For me, it was video, which is so funny because I'm like terrified of being on camera, but it was something about like being able to teach through video that really changed it for me. Like if you were to like flip the camera around and, just have me talk to the camera, it's super uncomfortable. But like things like this, having a conversation, connecting deeply, this is the kind of thing that I love. And when I can turn the camera and teach somebody something, that's really what changed my business. So that's when my business took off, when Snapchat became available, Instagram stories. And I was like, oh my gosh, all these bloggers are like going on camera. I don't want to do that. But then I realized, well, I have to do that if I want to keep up. And then when I started, it was like, oh, wait, now I'm like really connecting with people.
Yeah.
So again, for me, it was video. But if video is not for you, just find the right avenue that you're really strong and more comfortable in, and start there.
Yeah. Yeah. And people, they do kind of freak out about video. And I get it if you're not used to, I'm very comfortable on video, on audio. I'm actually better there than I am like to sit down and write an email. I know that about myself. But I think people need to realize that they just want to see the real you, right? Not the super polished, like people are over that. They're over the fake and I shouldn't even say fake, but they're over the, having to have everything put together and everybody in its place. They wanted to see the real and raw you. And that's the beauty of video and connecting with people. So even if you're not like video is not your thing, I still feel like that should be a little bit of piece in your marketing and in your business, because people will do business with people they know, like, and trust. And if you're not putting yourself out there, then they're having a hard time, connecting to you through an email. And you can't convey tone, right? And, purpose necessarily through just writing. So I think it needs to be in there a little bit. But if you're uncomfortable, just push the button. I'll never forget doing my first, I don't know if you remember Periscope. Do you remember Periscope?
Yes. Oh my God. That had its moment. I never did it because I was like, it's too overwhelming.
Oh my goodness. I remember when it first came out and you'd be somewhere and everybody's phones would go off, make that noise, like the Periscope noise. I can't remember exactly what it was now, but I remember the very first time pushing, go live, on Facebook or on Instagram. And we all have the nervousness around it. But then once you have your passion, like you said, and kind of go back to why you're doing what you're doing, it's easier just to let all that stuff go and just focus on how can I help someone today? How can I serve someone today? And you're helping a lot of people with recipes. I can tell you that right now. So on that note, just a little bit, what's your favorite thing to teach about recipes or about cooking for women? Like, what is it that's like, this is really what I know is going to help them the most and why I'm doing what I'm doing.
So my favorite thing or my favorite type of person to teach are the people who are terrified in the kitchen, or the people who really have no confidence, the people who want to learn how to cook, but just have such self-doubt and anxiety. And I didn't realize how many of these people existed, to be honest. I was kind of naive and I just thought, well, I never went to cooking school. I'm self-taught. I grew up around great cooks, and I just thought everybody knew how to cook. Like I didn't realize, I've never really been around, family members. Like everybody cooked in my family. So I just didn't really understand. And when I started to make friends, when my kids were in preschool, and these moms were like, please, can you come teach me how to boil water? Like, I don't know how to do anything. And I was like, no, that's not real. What do you mean? And then I just started realizing that people just don't know how to cook. And that's who I love. And it's not that I'm like, oh, you're so stupid for not knowing how to cook.
Right,
I treat them like it was almost like the same feeling I felt when I went in to teach my first graders. Like these first graders don't know how to read. And it's like, okay, let me give you the tools and help build your confidence in reading so that you have that skill for life. And that's really what I do. I want to be the safe place on the internet. So many people are sharing recipes, but not everybody is teaching the basics. And so I love teaching the basics so that people have this foundation to go through life understanding how to cook, as opposed to just being completely tied to a recipe and not being able to veer from that. Cooking is a life skill, right? We all have to eat. So it's just, I think that I've seen the change in people's lives far beyond the kitchen. They're, once they're confident in the kitchen, they're able to connect with their family more, their friends. They just, it gives you a sense of worth, especially for moms who, we have to feed our families every day. Like it doesn't ever stop. And even for someone who loves to cook, I'm like, again, like I have to make dinner again. So
like it's some surprise to us, right? I mean, it's like, it's just part of it. But
yes. So I just am really here to show women around the world that you can do it. And it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. It doesn't have to take a lot of time. And it can taste delicious. Like I can teach you how to make food taste really good with just understanding a few simple basics.
Right.
That's why I do what I do.
Right. I love that, because I would not have either thought there were people who have true anxiety or lack of confidence, in the kitchen. And, the kitchen is like the heart of the home. I mean, it's where a lot of conversation happens. It's where a lot of connection happens. And when you go to it doesn't matter how big or small the home is. If there's a gathering, they're all in the kitchen.
Oh yeah.
They're all in the kitchen. Room. And if you're the chef, you're like, move out.
Get out.
But it's just where people congregate, it's like a comfort space in the home. So I think it's really important for moms to have that confidence. And again, I can follow a recipe when it's given to me and I have, step-by-step instructions. If I have to ad lib, you don't want me to ad lib. So, at all in the kitchen, my husband loves to cook and he does a lot of it. But, a funny story I forget what it was that you said, it made me think of when my grandmother was teaching me how to make cornbread dressing. I don't know if you ever made cornbread dressing.
No.
And she had the family recipe, and she was getting older. I'm like, I really want to know how to make your cornbread dressing. And so I came down to her house and she's showing me everything. And she's like, well, you take your cornbread and you this. And I'm like, wait, how'd you make your cornbread? And she looked at me and she was like, girl, you don't know how to make cornbread? And I was like, Grandma, no, I don't. I'm not the person who enjoys cooking, but I actually do enjoy the cooking part. And this is what I'd be interested to know from you do you find that, and then we'll go back to business questions, but do you find that women struggle with the planning part? Like that's the part I don't like, planning out the meal and coming up with new ideas. And so for me, it's like, I don't mind doing the actual cooking and the working in the kitchen. It's the thinking about the meal planning process. Like it just, if someone would just say, here, cook this week, and here's everything you need, I'm good. I'll go to the grocery store. I'll order it online, but, I'll do the work. Do you find that, or is there both?
People, there's both, but people definitely struggle with that. So let me ask you this. If somebody said to you, okay, Monday, make pasta, Tuesday, make chicken, Wednesday, make fish and didn't give you the recipe, does that alleviate it for you, or you need to know exactly what it is?
Yeah, I just don't want to think about it at all.
At all. Yeah.
At all.
It's
that would
exhausting.
Definitely be, yeah. I mean, it definitely, given the days of the week, a category, that's how my brain works. So I would definitely want to start there. But then just taking the time to go find the recipes and all of that, I'm good market research for you.
And I think, and I also think, and again, it's decision fatigue, right? Like it's just 100%. The little, I'm not a meal planner because I love food so much that I don't know what I want to eat on Friday, on Monday. Like I'm going to change my mind 1,000 times before I get there.
Right.
So for me, it's different, but I also try to normalize that not everybody has to love cooking. Like it doesn't have to be like, just because I love it and because so many people love it, doesn't mean that everybody has to love it. Not every mom has to be in the kitchen cooking, or even every dad. Like it just,
right.
It doesn't have to be, but we do have to eat, and we do have to cook sometimes. So I think there's a balance. And I think for those of us, like for you, where you hate kind of that planning part, so don't plan for 7 nights, like intentionally making the decision to, okay, we're going to order out, Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. So now you have 3 days a week, like whatever it is, so that it's not so painful to have to plan. But the thought of planning 7 meals versus planning 3 or 4 meals feels a little bit easier. And so, that's something that I always encourage people to do. But again, I also think that for people who are so tied to a recipe, cooking is more time consuming, right? Like if you're not able to just open up your fridge and your pantry and whip something up quickly, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
So that is like, that's what I do. That's how I cook. I open up my fridge. I'm like, what do I feel like? What do I have? Let's make something. And it takes out all of the planning piece of it, but it takes practice to get there. So,
yeah. I found myself so many times doing the 5 o'clock stare into the refrigerator, like what I got to work with. What am I going to do here? Yes. I'll go to the pantry. What can I put in there from the pantry? And, I'm learning to do those things a little bit better, but I know I could probably benefit from reading some of your stuff. So tell me about your course that you wrote and, just kind of creating that digital product and how that's helped you to bring in some additional streams of income, because there's so many different business models that people can do. They can do live coaching, they can do speaking, they can do course creation, they can do membership sites. And there's always not always, but there's been this controversy of membership site, course creation. So tell us a little bit about your process with creating the course and what you've seen success-wise.
I've thought all about the different things. I've thought about membership. I've thought about everything. So the way that my business has worked is I first started just with the blog. So for 5 years, I just put out recipes, didn't sell anything. And the way that I made money there was through ad revenue on my site. So that still continues to be my main source of income.
Okay.
So there was that. And then what happened? Then I sometimes work with brands. So sponsored posts and things like that. That's another source of income. And then I realized that you can sell things on the internet, like anybody could. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like I can create my own products, but like, I don't know how to do that. So I, took many courses and masterminds and things to really understand business. Like I'm not a businesswoman.
Right. Yeah.
So I learned how to create products and sell them. And so I started small, doing like little paid challenges or things like that. And when Cook with Confidence was always kind of my big dream. Like the name hit a few years ago, but I had this vision of just having this like basic online cooking school for the everyday home cook, like not culinary school. Like we're just home cooks. We don't need anything crazy, but like just what you need to know as an everyday mom. And I started sharing or thinking about it, and the timing just couldn't have been more perfect in terms of COVID hitting. I launched it in February of 2020. So a month later, everybody was home.
Yeah.
And it was I wasn't sure how I was going to run it, but I decided to do it. The first time I launched it, it was a live program. So people signed up. It was only 4 weeks at the time. And we did small groups. And I basically walked people through live classes every single week. And once those started I ran that maybe 3 or 4 times, and it did really well. And I was like, this is awesome, but I can't always commit to showing up live every single week. And that's when I started to pre-record all of the classes. And then people would just log in and have this program. And then I would do once a week, like group Zoom sessions to basically talk through. So the program is now self-paced. Anyone can purchase at any time, and you go through it on your own. But during kind of the last 2 to 3 years when everybody was just home on their computers, it worked really well as a small group, show up live to talk about, the last module for this week. That worked really well. Now that people are kind of back to life and back to work, I find that the self-paced has been the way to go. And I've always thought about a membership. I think memberships are great if you are guided in the right way. I also know that memberships take a lot of time and effort and consistency. And for me, I already have a full-time job with my blog, and it would just, I don't think I could give enough to both. And so for me, I just decided to pause on the membership. But if a membership is like your main thing, I think it can be a really awesome thing, because it does require a lot of effort. Yeah. But also just trying different things and seeing what works. Like, I would love to continue to do these live, Zoom classes, module by module, but the way that life is for not just me, but for everybody else, like, it's hard to get timing down. Like, when everyone was just home, it was like, anytime works for anybody. It's great. And also, I'm not working with entrepreneurs. I'm working with, people who work, but I'm working with moms who have crazy busy schedules, who aren't sitting in front of their computers all day. And so, that was kind of, it had its moment to be a live program for a few years, and now it's just self-paced. So always shifting. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. You may start out some way in some business model. I created a course, back in 2018, and, it was a small kind of group coaching, program with the course, or actually it was just the course. And then it was, with live coaching, and then it was like a DIY. And then it was, so it's definitely, shifted and morphed. And I think you have to be willing to roll with the marketplace, and what's going on and what's going to be the best use of your time. So thank you for sharing that. And we're going to put links to all the things that Laney has to offer. I know some of you are probably already Googling her right now, so that you can get a look at some of her recipes. But what are you most excited about right now, Laney, in your business or in life? Tell what's going on. Yeah. In terms of my business, again, it's been such a roller coaster the last few years, and my blog took a little bit of a backseat when I was creating this course. I couldn't do all of it. And now that the course is set and done and out there and helping people, it's fantastic. But I'm really kind of going back to my roots when it comes to my business. And I'm just really focusing on the blog and just focusing on growing that traffic, but also just creating more recipes that people love. Just easy, simple recipes. Like, I want to be like, when people are like, "Oh, what's for dinner?" Like, I want them to always be able to come to my site and find something exciting and simple and easy, and just recipes that you can trust. That's my goal. I don't want people coming and trying a recipe and being like, "Ugh, that didn't work," or this. And that's typically not the case. Right. But I'm excited to just kind of get refocused back onto the blog again. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, like the word blog, like it was so popular for so long. And then it, at least I felt like it seemed like that it wasn't as popular, but it sounds like, it's been pretty consistent revenue for you. Yeah. Even when, maybe it shifted in how popular it was, it's still been a great revenue source for you. Yeah. And it shifted in how I like the type of content that's on there in terms of the writing. So like, when you think about blog, I feel like people think about 10 years ago when people were just writing about their life story, right? Right. Like, yeah. You've seen those memes or those jokes of people posting a recipe and they're talking about their grandmother's house or whatever it is. Right. Yeah. It's not that anymore. So if you go to some more recent recipes, which is also why I'm excited about this, it's all about teaching. So blog posts, it's nothing about my personal life. It's all about here's how to make this recipe successful. Here's how it can help you. here's some easy swaps. Here's some tips on how to freeze it. Like it's all about teaching.
Right.
And that has shifted a lot in the last 8 years because it used to just be, here's why I like it. And it tastes so yummy. And it's not that anymore.
Well, people just don't have time.
No.
They're just not interested,
Nope.
I mean, if they want to see that, they want to go to your stories. But if they're looking for a recipe, they want to come and get the recipe, get in there and get out, and get into the kitchen and cook. So that's a really great point. Because when I think of blog, I think of the old day blogs. So that's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you had a chance to talk to, all the mompreneurs of the world for just a few minutes, like what would you want them to know? And this could be related to recipe. It could be related to just business life. What would you want them to know?
Gosh, I think, again, I always go back to this because this is kind of what I always go back to myself, but just trust yourself, trust your gut. If you're a mompreneur out there, you are one for a reason. Being a mom in and of itself is a full-time job. And so if you are also trying to start something on your own, it's because you believe in something, and there's a reason you believe in it, because you're good at it or you love it, and just keep coming back to that and just know that it's not going to be easy and it's going to be far from perfect, but there's a reason that you're meant to be doing that. So just keep going.
Love that. Love that. And do you have a favorite, these are just kind of little rapid fire questions I like to ask. Do you have a favorite business resource that you use, like an app that you love that you couldn't live without for your business, or a website you frequent that, really helps you in your business?
Not an app or anything. There's definitely people that I've been drawn to in terms of like business mentors or books that I've read that have been really helpful. Those. I would say, honestly, most of the work that I've been doing now is around like mindset, right? Like so much of business and being an entrepreneur is about your mindset, and it's a little woo-woo-y, but like all of those types of books, working on yourself, it just also helps your business so much. And so one of my favorite books that I read a couple of years ago, I listen to books. I don't actually read them, but I feel like it counts.
Me too. It does count for sure.
It counts.
It counts.
Okay.
And if I really loved it, then I will buy the physical copy, because I also like to take notes and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I love Jen Sincero's "You Are a Badass." Like all of her badass books, I think were like amazing. Denise DT, I think it's called, like, she has a few books, but like Get Rich, Lucky Bitch, like just like really motivating. They give you, so there's just some great tools in there. But more recently, I've been very into more, I guess technically they're more like self-help, but also it's like help my business so much. Any of the Mel Robbins books. So her, High Five Habit, one of my favorite books of all time. And her other, the 5-second rule. Like they've been amazing.
Right. Okay.
So those are the Mel Robbins are my most recent books that I've loved. And then the Jen Sincero and Denise DT. Those are my current favorites. Yeah.
Nice. I haven't read any of those. So I actually had the first author you talked about, I actually came across that. I'm like, I don't know why I have not read this book yet, but I feel like I need to read that book. So, it's in my audio library. So
yeah, it's a really good one.
I'll be listening to it. What else was I going to ask you? There's one more question I was going to ask you. Oh, what do you like to do for fun? Just you, like just something for Laney. I know you love to cook, but there's got to be something else. There's something else that you love to do. Okay. All right.
Yes. I mean, I love to be alone, but I love to walk. I love walking. I love to just be active and sweat and work out, but I pretty much go on long walks every single day. I love getting facials.
Yes, girl.
I don't do it often, but it's like, people love massages. No, I want a facial, like facial 10 times out of 10.
Yeah.
I love eating. Like I love going out to great restaurants, but I'm pretty simple. Like I like to cook. I like to be with my family and friends and just like in my pajamas doing nothing.
Yeah.
And I love a long walk. I love it.
That's awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Well, everybody has their thing, and I always like to ask. So thank you so much for coming on the show. This was really a great conversation. And again, we'll put the links to all the things for Laney for you to be able to look her up in the show notes. And thanks again for coming on. It was great.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
All right, friends, I'll catch you on the next episode.
Well, that's a wrap, friends, for this week's episode of the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast. Thank you so much for listening and for following the show. It means so much to me. And listen, friend, sharing is caring. So if you loved this episode and thought of some fellow mompreneurs who could benefit, send them the link. Share this episode or take a screenshot and head on over to Instagram and share and tag me at Martine31Williams. We are connected on Instagram, right? It's where you will get all the fun behind the scenes of my life and business as a mompreneur. Until next time, know that I am believing in you always.